Welcome to Chapter 2 and the study on economics. Now, for those of you who have studied economics, this will be a bit of a review for you. For those of you who are taking this course as their first course, this chapter may reveal to you some things that you are hearing about in the media. And obviously, we're going to be going through this chapter quickly, as this is a survey course. You will have the opportunity to take focused classes in your later academic studies on economics, both macro and micro. So let's start off with some basics here. Economics is the study of how we put our resources to work. We produce goods and services, and we also consume those goods and services. And the part of economics that looks at the country as a whole is called macroeconomics, and you will have a whole semester to study macroeconomics. And the part that looks at how you and I spend our money and perform in the marketplace is called microeconomics. And when you complete your macroeconomics course, you will also take a microeconomics course. And capitalism is the basis of countries like the United States. And these countries leave most or all of the factors of production in the hands of individuals. And the factors of production are assets like capital and natural resources, entrepreneurship, knowledge, and labor. And in these countries, it is a tradition that the government does not own these factors of production, and they leave these to private industry to use them for profit. Now, I think we can all think of exceptions to the rules here. Government does control some of the capital in the form of research and development grants and an awarding of government contracts, and that is just a couple of examples. And the government owns our state and federal parks and protects those natural resources. And through the funding of research and development projects through universities and military contractors and scientific organization, the government creates an environment for innovation and entrepreneurship to thrive. And through programs like the student loan program and supporting education, the government has its hand in the development of our collective knowledge. Now, of course, it regulates labor, how much we must be paid, and deals with our safety. But overall, government is supposed to be a small participant in these activities and not the participant. Now, when the government is the major participant, it is considered state capitalism. Now, the most well-known countries for this type of economy are China and Russia. And the countries embrace some of the principles of capitalism, but not all. These countries can quickly change their position on what they control, how much of the time, and under what circumstances. Now, capitalism is based on the presumption of four basic rights: the right to own private property, the right to own a business and keep the profits, the right to freedom of competition, and the right to freedom of choice. And why are these rights important? Well, let's just think about this on a very selfish level. How hard would you work if you felt that you would never be able to purchase your own home or buy a special piece of property in your favorite spots? Would you actually be willing to put in all those extra hours to grow a business if you had no right to take full ownership and keep the profits? What if you had to get permission from the government before you could go into business and compete against another business? What if you received a letter from the government saying that starting in the fall semester, you would be studying chemistry and you would become a scientist? Now, maybe you don't want to be a scientist. Maybe you don't even like science. It would be hard for us to stay motivated in a capitalistic society to make our own lives and the lives of others better if we had to do without any of these rights. Now, Roosevelt expanded the four basic rights of capitalism. By the way, sometimes you will hear them called the tenets of capitalism. But Roosevelt added freedom of speech and expression, freedom to worship in your own way, freedom from want, and freedom from fear. So in terms of the rights of capitalism, we have four more additional rights that cannot be presumed to be present in the other countries. Now, socialism is an economic system that allows for the government to own some basic businesses. And we, the entrepreneurs, run the smaller businesses. There are usually higher taxes in these countries because the country spends a lot of money on providing a minimum standard of living to the people who live there. Now, some of the business benefits, and I say this with a certain amount of sarcasm, are listed on this slide. Of course, social equity is important in every society to permit people to excel to their maximum potential. And free education would be nice if it was a good educational system from the start. A free health care is okay if it allows people to make their own treatment decisions under the guidance of their doctor. The free childcare is great if it is also safe and of the quality parents want. And longer vacations, shorter work weeks, and generous sick leave are all wonderful to think about in practice. But at what point do we have too much leave and wages fall, productivity falls, and motivation suffers? Now, in cases where someone is likely to excel in a particular industry, it is likely that in a socialist society that they would leave the country and go somewhere else. Think about it for just a second. If the government was forcing you to sell cars and you were a talented software developer who could make millions on your idea, would you accept the sales job as being adequate? Probably not. You would want to leave and go to another country where you could advance your ideas and do what you do best. Communism goes even a step further. Where the government owns a lot of the industry in socialism, it owns almost all of it under communism. The government controls the factors of production, which means you and I would not have access to them, and the government controls the supply of everything bought. We lose the control to make the decision about what and how much to produce, which is what we do in a free market. And companies make what we buy at a price we agree is fair. Now, how does that happen? Well, basically, when the economy is operating under free market rules, supply and demand drives prices and production levels, and it happens through the desire to maintain equilibrium. Now, let's look at the supply curve. The supply curve compares quantity and price, and as the prices go up, the suppliers are willing to produce more. Another way to look at it is to say that suppliers are willing to make more product as the prices go up. But that doesn't work for you and I, because we are not going to keep paying a higher price as production increases, right? And that is where the demand curve comes in. The curve uses the same graph of comparing quantities and prices, but as the prices go up, we, the consumer, buy less. And it makes sense. If you want a shirt that costs $50, you're probably only going to be willing to buy one. But if that shirt goes on sale, let's say to $25, you might be willing to buy two of those shirts for yourself, maybe in two different colors. And you might decide to buy three shirts if the price fell to $15 and buy an additional one for a friend. So the demand curve makes sense when you think about how we spend our money. So when we put the supply and the demand curve together on the same graph, we see that they cross. The intersection point where they cross is called the equilibrium price, and that is the pricing point at which the producers and the consumers agree. In this graph, the seller is willing to offer 25 shirts for $15. And if we are willing to pay $15, then the producer will make up to 25 shirts for us to buy. Now, if the demand for the shirts were to suddenly increase, let's say that everybody wants one, then the price would go up, and it would send a signal to the producer to produce more. And if suddenly everyone decided that the shirt was a bad deal, even at $15, and stopped buying it, then the producer would constrict production and not offer as many for sale. So in this chapter, in particular, I want you to make sure that you go to the end of the chapter and look at the vocabulary that is listed. Make sure you understand the terms. If you have any questions, email me.